I've gotten water.
Are you great?
Awesome.
Attorney Sobel, are you locked in?
Yeah.
Is your legal advice ready to go?
From my.
All right, let's call this meeting to order at 7:01 PM. We're gonna start with salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Sunshine Law notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular council meeting of May 28, 2024 is available by calling phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was included in the schedule of meetings, which was adopted by resolution number 2024-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Two River Times on January 4th, 2024. Posted on the borough website, the bulletin board and municipal building. It has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the borough clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole. Here. Sally. Here. Hoey. Here. Scott. Here. Rivera.
Here.
Olson.
Great, thank you. Jumping right into workshop, I'm actually gonna start with NJDOT. I think one of the members of our farmers market was running late today. So we pushed that to the bottom of workshop to hopefully give her a chance to attend. So we are starting with NJDOT fiscal year 2025 local aid grant. Engineer Gardella is with us. How are you?
Good, how are you? Sorry, I thought I had a few minutes. Pull up a couple of things here. So, once again, it's that time of year, we're called upon to submit our annual NJDOT municipal aid grant to the state. It's an online submission. Every year I come to you guys about this time of year, we talk about a couple potential projects. Obviously roadway improvement projects for submission. This one is due July 1st. The grant is submitted through my office, through the online portal, like I mentioned, and the only action by the governing body is to do a resolution, which the clerk will prepare for a meeting in June, and then that gets submitted alongside the grant. I had sent an email a couple weeks ago. As with all the projects, we kind of tracked which roads would be suitable for this type of project. This past year was funded improvements to Philman. That was from Cedar to Hants. The year before that and the prior year before that are the improvements to Fairhaven Road. That was phase 1 and 2. That's in design right now, which I'll be coming back to you for authorization to bid for that. And the other projects that we've had funded by this grant was the Hanson Cooney, the improvements to 3rd Street Phase 2, the improvements to Harrison, Batten, and so on. I was going to pull up in the meantime just to kind of give you an overview of what kind of funding we typically get. I have it in my spreadsheet here. And just while this is coming up, what we do is we do an engineer's estimate based on what the improvements would be, the estimated cost that gets submitted. We put in for 100%. Because the project is designed in-house, we don't have to, typically in-house, we don't have to go out and spend professional fees and put that towards the grant. So it's typically all the monies go towards construction. In prior years, if we only get a certain amount of grant money, we know what the engineer's estimate, and then it would be up to us to figure out whether or not we want to fund the entire project or scale the project down. But typically DOT, if you set a limit of the project, that's kind of where they want you to do. If you say, okay, I'm gonna go from, like on Foreman, from Cedar to Hans, that's pretty much the scope. So just to give you an overview of years past, Fairhaven Road Phase 1, we got $251,900. Phase 2, we got $675,000. So for that, Phase 1 and 2, those were very strong numbers. For improvements to Hanson Cooney, we got $350,000. For some of the other projects, for example, let's see further down. Third Street, we got $240,000. Harrison, we got $260, Batt and $350. So you can see the numbers typically range from the high twos to the mid threes. Obviously, the Phase 2 Fairhaven Road, we were able to get some additional funds through discretionary monies. The latest project that we submitted for last year was Foreman Street. That was $314,292. I don't know where they come up with these round figures, but looking at the other municipalities within the county, Fairhaven typically ranks pretty high with funding. So
Can you explain that, why we do so well? I mean, clearly it's a great staff and you know how to make the best use of the program. But it also, because of the pedestrian components of our planning and what they know we're committed to in terms of.
I think it's, yes, it's scope of work, commitment to the project, the elements of the design within the project, the ability to have more of a shovel-ready type project where we design things internally, we can get things out to bid fairly quickly. We don't have to go out to consulting and go through that whole process. You know, we basically take projects from the time we submit the grant all the way to close out. The whole thing, start to finish. Once you get the grant, we have 18 months to get it out to bid, to not get it out to bid, to award the contract. It may sound like a long period of time, but when you have other things in the queue, it kind of comes up pretty quickly. And it's worked very well for us in the past with all the other projects going on throughout the borough, and Fairhaven Road Phase 1, Fairhaven Road Phase 2, obviously going out to bid, and then the improvements to Foreman. So having said that, I had recommended 2 roads as possibilities. The first was improvements to Linden, and the second was improvements to Cambridge, in no particular order. From Linden, basically, you would go from Fairhaven Road all the way across Kemp and tie it into South Woodland area. That project would basically consist of removing and replacing the existing concrete curb, because those curbs are somewhat original to the neighborhood. Milling and paving, doing some signage and striping improvements, and that's pretty much it. No sidewalks in the area, so there's no sidewalks. It would just be basically a resurfacing program.
There's some flooding that's happening there, is this?
Also look at the intersection at Kemp. That's been a hot spot for us. We are aware of what's going on there, so we can put some monies in for some stormwater management.
You said tie it in. What's South Woodland? What's that road?
So as part of the micro projects, we just finished some curb work up on the South Woodland area, and then we're gonna be doing some milling and paving this summer in that area.
So we tie into that.
We'll tie it all together. And also tie into the water company had done some improvements a few years ago, and they had milled and paved some of that area. So
Is it-
that, yeah,
Is it a disadvantage to us with the application, knowing that Fairhaven Road, right, and Hanson Cooney haven't been completed yet and wanted?
no, we're right on track. We're in compliance with the timing of all the projects.
Okay.
They understand that the phase one for Fairhaven Road is gonna be tied to phase two, which obviously makes for a better project overall. And then we just got notification a couple months ago that they funded Foreman, so that clock just started ticking,
18 months.
correct. The other project would be, the other roadway would be for Cambridge. Basically taking it from, Ridge Harding all the way down around and tie it into behind the school, basically, behind Nolan. By Park. That roadway has obviously existing curb, but also has sidewalk. We did some pedestrian improvements a few years back to extend the sidewalk, which helped link that area behind the school. The main issue on Cambridge is the sidewalks are in poor condition. Cracked, settled, somewhat original, non-ADA compliant. The curb ramps at the intersections definitely need to be redone. And then milling and paving. From a cost perspective, they're pretty close in price. Linden, these are rough numbers, just so you know. I'm gonna, if and when we choose, I'll put pen to paper and go out and measure everything as well. Roughly 400,000 for Linden. And give or take 450 for Cambridge. From a linear footage standpoint, Linden is just over 2,500 linear feet, so just shy of a half a mile. And Cambridge is roughly 1,800 linear feet, which is about a third of a mile. So to put it into perspective. The reason Cambridge is a little more money is because obviously you've got the sidewalk and ADA improvements that would drive the number up slightly.
Does Cambridge have any disconnects in the sidewalk network right now?
So we've done a few things. As houses were being built along or rebuilt along that corridor, we had developers and applicants extend sidewalk in some of those areas. We have full connectivity. We do not have full connectivity on both sides. The
Right.
sidewalk on the east side ends at the last cross street, which is
Princeton?
Princeton.
Okay.
And then on the other side, on the west side, it continues through, goes around the bend and ties into Park.
Do the projects have to be, like, does it have to be consecutive distances, like, because we had looked at this on the grants committee as well, and one of the proposals we had was possibly for the entrance of Knollwood. Is there any way to tie that part in?
That, yeah, that question had come up through an email I got.
Yeah.
Although a great project, and I
Yeah.
actually had it designed and laid out, and tried to kind of push it through another project. The projects need to be contiguous
That- they do,
and
that's-
within the same limit of work. You can't necessarily
Like
spend
jump.
money,
Jumping apart.
2 blocks away. Yeah.
That's a good question though, because the only thing that exists between one end of Cambridge and that particular location is the school parking lot. Is it still, could we argue that it's
Well, I think-
contiguous?
I would recommend looking at the other stakeholder,
Yeah,
the Board of Ed, and seeing if there's some type of partnership we can do in a future project to implement some of the ATP recommendations and some of the PED improvements.
there's,
The goal is to fully fund either of these projects, I assume?
The goal as the governing body is to fully fund to get a complete roadway done from the grant perspective, we submit and say, okay, this road's gonna be 450. They may only come back and fund 325, so you have a shortage.
And then we decide what pieces we want, or possibly if we wanna take any pieces, like which pieces we'd want to do.
Traditionally, you pass an ordinance that funded the whole, that funds the whole project,
So then we cover the difference.
Well, if we can afford it.
but it would be, you know, a bond ordinance that would basically be adopted to, you adopt the bond ordinance regardless, but traditionally, the governing body has fully funded for projects.
Have you found that the more expensive roads get less funded? Is there, I guess, because when you're first explaining to me,
Mhm.
truthfully, I don't see that much of a difference here. It sounds like you also think they're sort of in similar conditions where they need to be replaced. So I hear that one is more expensive. I'd rather knock off the one that's more expensive if we can get the grant dollars for that.
The one
God
that's,
forbid the programs change in the future, at least we're left with a road that's less expensive to fix.
Cambridge would probably be more of an attractive street to fund, because you can. The way we write the grant is we need to tie it to municipal facilities, the schools. I could even sell, you know, the linkages, you know, all the other improvements that we've been doing. You know, and the sidewalk network in itself, they like to fund that type of stuff. They don't typically go for, although they will. A strict mill and pave, remove and replace curbing is somewhat of a generic type project, where if you start putting in some the ADA and pedestrian improvements, things of that nature, tying it to schools, facilities, parks, and all the linkages with the neighborhood, you can really
ATP, can
Write
you
it
grant
out.
them with ATP?
look at the ATP, we take excerpts from all those documents, the master plan, all that, and we insert it all in and
Do you think whichever one we choose, is it your best guess that you would recommend the other one next year for the same grant, or is there another big road that is on the precipice perhaps of needing the work, but we're just not quite there yet? For
we're
that?
not quite there yet. I mean, obviously, we're getting a lot done through the micro projects. I spent 2.5 hours this afternoon walking all the streets with the water company for all the roads they're gonna be repaving, which is a very aggressive paving plan.
Yeah.
And obviously, the 3 projects, phase 1 and 2 of Fairhaven Road, and then Foreman. I just thought these kind of played in nicely based on everything we've been doing in the last, say, 15, 20 years. But, you know, at some point, Hance Road is gonna have to get built and paved. Some of the other.
You mean the rest of Hance Road,
Well, that.
not the
that's,
current Hance Road? What's the date on that?
For the Hance and Cooney,
Yes.
possibly next week, I'll know better tomorrow.
Yes.
I have some emails out right now,
Okay.
and we'll
Uh,
get notices out.
So what do we need here? Do we need to actually provide a,
Yes, you
Direction
need to
to
give
Rich?
direction so we can prepare the resolution of support and Rich can start preparing the grant.
you guys want to ask more questions? Do you
Well-
have an idea? What's your?
So I just. My only concern is the money from, there's a lot of financial unknowns right now, right? We have the rest of the facilities that will get funded, right, as we pull those notes when we need them. Fairhaven Road's not done. We have an executive session discussion today where there's another financial unknown. And my concern is given the number of financial unknowns, is it prudent on us to do this? Not knowing how much we need to commit, you know, past behaviors, you know, somewhat of an indication of the future, but there's no guarantee with the state. So my only concern is racking and stacking against us the financial commitments. We can't forget that we also need to do the work with this chapel. Right, which is another kind of unknown. So I'm a little concerned with the number of financial unknowns. As well as, you know, we're on a good trajectory right now to complete quite a few projects. And I just would like to continue that trend. So those are my two concerns with it. I agree.
The answer to that would be the grant submission is not complicated. It would be easier to submit the grant based on a street you select. And then if for any reason that you decide to not fund the shortage, we could go back to DOT and say, thank you, but no, thank you. They're gonna call if we don't submit. They're gonna wonder why Fairhaven didn't submit.
This is a little different. This is municipal aid conservation.
No,
Municipal aid is, it's an annual.
When would this work be done? Are we talking about 26?
So typically we submit in July, we usually know November-ish. And we get our award letter. And then, so you're looking at, we have to have this awarded by May of 26.
We'd have to pass a resolution on November saying we fully funded the project this year.
No,
No, they go support.
you would do it at the, well, you would do it prior to authorization to bid. The other thing too is as a funding mechanism is we do have monies in sidewalk trust, so the Cambridge would fit into that category. So just to offset it, you know.
I will say of all the roads I get complaints on Cambridge via email from residents, Cambridge is high on the list. Mostly because parents are walking their kids to school in that area. Condition of sidewalks are very poor.
So Rich, let's just say this, the county gave us 375.
State.
The state gave us 375. So we're short approximately $75,000.
Give or take.
We could possibly use the sidewalk trust fund to.
Right now, we
offset
have
that.
about 85 in there.
Are there other, talk about all the complaints, is it, obviously, I know the bigger complaints on Cambridge, but the condition of the road itself, is it in bad condition or is it more just the side?
Combination of both.
It is.
It's the condition of the road, it's the age of the road, condition of the asphalt. It's overdue.
I mean, personally, between the two, I would choose Cambridge because of the connection to really both schools, arguably. I know that we have crosswalks everywhere, we would need them. But I see the benefits in the way that advances our larger goals that are consistent with the values of very pedestrian connections. And being able to get to schools, complete schools projects and, the policy pledges that we've made. That said, I also understand what Councilman LaBarbera is saying. I feel the same way. We have a lot going on. But I understand the municipal aid, it's an annual thing. They've been very generous. I know that they like what we do with their money and I feel like we would probably get a nice grant. So I don't want to leave money on the table. But if we get to the point where we're not, we know we can't keep spending. We're not pre-obligated, as I understand it, and Rich, correct me, or Teresa, correct me where I'm wrong. A resolution in support of the application is just that, it's the application. We're not committing, with that resolution, we're not committing to execute balance of funds and so on. We have to wait and
You
see.
make a further commitment when you adopt the bond ordinance, which you have to do before you put it out to bid.
But it's the same conversation that we have with the grant, like you never would want to shy away from free money. And we can't forget all the time that's gonna be spent between now and July 1 to get the grant out. Right.
Well, he's done it, he's saying it's a pretty easy process, he's done it a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of cutting and pasting from past. But, so the question is though, have we ever put it out and, applied and not done the work? Been awarded and not done the work, we've never done that before. Do you think it would look bad on us if we did do that?
I think if we put in for so much amount, we only got a fraction. I would then recommend, we have a pretty good relationship with DOT and the state. Go back and say, listen, we have this funding shortfall.
Mhm.
Can we just not do the last block or scale it back. You know, be creative and find a way to at least do something.
So without going to them, we have to do the whole scope of work based on what our application is. We can't just on our own cut pieces. We have to follow through with the entire scope of work. according to
But
the grant,
I
unless
think
there's
we
a
need to
side.
get it approved. Because if I recall, Henson Cooney was a different scope of work than we originally submitted.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah, saying you have to get it approved, but yeah,
Fairhaven's biggest financial challenges are in the current fund budget. They're not in capital. We're in very good stead with capital, we're very good stead with our capital improvement fund. And I don't see that funding a portion of this in 2026 as part of your overall capital plan would be difficult. That's outside of cap, you know, it's something I think the finance committee, who are very talented and creative, when they look at their long-term planning, that's one of the reasons why you get the extra time, you know, you got the 18 months, you know, you get a chance to look at where, you know, where you are with capital funding over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And get a feel for what you want to commit, you know, to overall bondable capital. And generally speaking, a portion of that is for roads. Sometimes it's done in a big adoption, like, you know, a 500,000 or $1 million, they pick away at over 5 years, or sometimes it's done annually, but you're always looking at that 2-3 year spread of what you're going to fund for capital improvements when it comes to larger ticket items like that. And we've been used pay-as-you-go capital for road projects.
Now we need to give direction now on which project. I think Councilman Cole was, I think you've voiced support for Cambridge.
About
Whatever.
a choice between the two.
Does anyone else want to voice support? Second, Cambridge?
Cambridge.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Cambridge is the direction.
All right, perfect.
Alright,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do the Fairhaven Farmers Market. This is regarding brewery sales on Borough Street. Come up, fantastic event.
Thank you all. And still recovering.
We're all clapping for you, Councilman.
Yeah, thank you guys for your support, for being there, all of the good things. It was honestly beyond our wildest dreams when we started this conversation in October. And I think similar to the art show, we're finding little ways that we can give back to the community in easy lifts on our part that people really want and they're craving and they need. And one of those is a farmer's market. So the majority of our vendors sold out within the first hour and a half, which means that they'll have to bring more. We're able to fit more vendors next time. We've already got a short list that we are vetting. 20+ people have reached out to us since Saturday to get involved. The foot traffic in town was positive. People said that the vendors were happy with the way that the load in and out was. It was minimally disruptive to the street itself, as well as the surrounding area. So all in, really positive. Thank you guys for your help, for your approvals. We moved fast, so we appreciate you guys letting us do our thing, but I think it worked out. So now we just have to do that 6 more times for the next 40 years.
Oh, yeah, you're not going anywhere.
So we're staying put, but we're happy to do it. We were really proud of leaving on Saturday and exhausted, so all good things. We would like to include Ross Brewery in the next, we had originally contracted with them to come. There was a snafu with the permit, so we're here to seek approval to ensure that they can join us. It would not be for open consumption. They would just be selling their beer. Perfect for Father's Day. She's already spinning up the posts. So we would really like to get them on board as well so that we can have a local brewer involved in the market.
Do they sample?
No.
They don't sample, they sell.
Yeah, they've already your approval.
Yeah,
they could.
They're allowed to say.
Yeah, I think
For
4
yeah,
ounces.
like the little tiny cups, but we are,
Your call.
yeah, we're not trying to push the boundaries here, so we're here to make the best plan with them that you guys agree to. I mean, personally, I love beer and I would like to sample it before I purchase it, but if that's off the table, we can work with that.
If they do samples, they cannot move from that
It's
tent.
right.
It's to stay at the table.
There's
Yeah.
like a
Chief?
specific. space.
There's the chief for,
Yeah.
chief, do you have any,
So we talked, I don't really see any problem with that as long as, you know, they follow the ABC rules and the ID people, which I'm sure they will, they have certain rules to follow, but as long as, assuming they don't follow the rules, I don't really see any issue.
Package sales, they can't just pop one open on their way out. They
No.
might bring them home. I spoke,
and the beer is not cold when they get it? Like if they buy it, is it a cold beer?
Probably not, I mean, I don't think that they would.
It would have to be something we could ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My concern is if it's cold, someone just on their own decides. Samples, right.
But not to sell a full beer.
And this is, Ross Brewery started strictly at farmers markets, and they just within the past 2 years opened a location, so they have a ton of experience with this. And have assured me they're used to pushback and they're very respectful and they wanna work with us, work with the town to make it that everyone feels comfortable.
Do you expect to expand this to other, is there gonna be a tequila company, some, not to put you on, but is that a possibility?
Yeah, it's potables, and they are expanding to become a distillery that includes some of their homemade mixes, but that's not in the immediate future, so. They would have to.
Would our approval be directed solely at this brewery, or would it be more open-ended?
they brought it to our tent.
No,
No,
I
this is
think,
for the land.
Allison, this approval is specific to the one request, it doesn't, if they wanted to come in with another tequila or something like that, or
For Ross Brewing.
then they can come back again and ask again.
The only reason why they're before use, because in the application, it states is the street that it's being sold or the property it's being sold on under the control of the state, county, or borough. And they had marked no. And speaking to the ABC, it got blank. So they just need council's permission to sell it on Willow Street because it's under the control of the borough, controlled by our police.
Was our original approval including the sale of alcohol?
No,
No.
they didn't come up with that.
So then how were they able to submit the vendor program before and they hit the snap?
We didn't know that we had to come to.
Yeah, we thought it was not consumed, not opened, not part of.
So taking a step back, right, we have one farmer's market, it was super successful. What do we want Fairhaven's farmer market to resemble? Because it's precedent setting, right, when you allow somebody to sell alcohol. Right, where does it start, where does it end, and what type of farmer's market do we have? Do we want to have? So have you guys thought about that
Yeah,
at
I
all
mean,
with?
as Anna stated, we've had over 20 people reach out already. And some of the messages we've sent right back and said, thank you so much for your interest. This is a farmer's market. It's food, it's perishables. We have a few exceptions for artisans, but we have a clear mission of locally sourced and grown consumable items. So, you know, I understand concern on alcohol and we're happy to work in whatever direction, but in general, we do want it to be food or, you know, things that you can take with you and consume and come back and buy more of.
Yeah, it's not a street fair, it's not like a drag in Savannah, it's a farmer's market, so if you wanna be, you know, responsible and grab a 6-pack for the barbecue that you're doing, I think that's, you know, a pretty acceptable thing to provide, but.
But we're not angling for
And their
like.
permit covers
How long
the
is the,
season.
just the season,
It
so it
covers
expires at the end
seasonal.
of, in October, I assume, which is
November.
November is the last one?
They're good for 9 months. I told them that they have approval for 6 months, the ABC, and they were fine with it. The one permit that'll cover the
Through the
entire
whole
event.
I do have concerns about selling alcohol. You know, in a farmer's market, which to me is organic produce, maybe some artisans. I did notice that the potable people sold out right away. People
They did, yeah.
very anxious. I think there was a blackberry or blueberry.
It's very good. Very.
But I do have concerns with monitoring whether or not the containers are open. We can't follow people around and make sure that they don't open the containers. And there were a lot of children there. I think it might be hard to monitor.
I also think there's so many other types of vendors that you could focus on aligned with what the essence of the farmer's market that you're trying to do. So I share Betsy's concerns.
Yeah, we're not concerned about space, so we tried people on both sides of the street, and I think that we could actually fill both sides of that street, so in terms of the amount of vendors that we can fit, I would say what we had was 28 plus 2 and shared a table, we could probably fit almost double that, so we could be really like prolific on who we
No.
include, but I think that like in terms of the things that we're trying to provide to the community. Listen, I mean, we're all adults, you know, if you see someone opening a beer at 10 AM on the street, you're just gonna be like, because that's unacceptable, like, we all are gonna walk around and be like, you just can't do that. I don't think that we should necessarily deprive people of being able to make that decision. Again, it's your call, but, they got started at farmers markets, they've seen
Understood.
success there, so.
I understand. I remember the vision that you guys, I remember the vision that you guys articulated, right, months ago. Right, and you said it again, right, the artisans, the organic produce, right, the local shops and everything, to me, that's what you sold on, and I think adding an alcoholic angle to it changes that.
I
So-
think you could still do it in that elevated way that you're envisioning, because, you know, it's not like food trucks and beer on tap and
Right.
smoke and generators, and it's really, you could taste so that you can, a lot of the other food vendors, you taste or sample something and then purchase it. It goes in your bag or your wagon or your basket or whatever. And you leave with it. Also, I think it's the kind of thing, if it's determined that it's okay to try it, if it doesn't work, well, then that's clearly not gonna be able to continue, but
And
I think you can still
Ross
do it.
Growing understands, because that's putting their permit in jeopardy,
Yeah.
if people are walking around and doing that, so if they could put some kind of signage,
That's what I said.
purchases for consumption off premise.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you put the whole market at risk, and then that's that, you know, that's not.
But,
not at all.
you know, when people get 3 blocks away,
I hear you, I guess they could go to the liquor store and do that too.
Yeah.
absolutely.
What are the circumstances under which the permit could be revoked? We're offering.
If they get caught, somebody's taking a sample, speaks it to Junior.
Well, we can revoke it. It would take a vote of the governing body to
We
revoke.
have to do it on the farmer's market, if they see that, they can.
But does that
They can
revoke it?
stop it.
Please.
If you feel comfortable without samples, that's totally fine, if you would rather not have someone.
I think the sample makes
Yeah.
it consistent with the other.
In Ross's
vendors.
application, they said just for sale, they didn't
Yeah.
say that. They would be doing samples, they said no samples, they would like to sell, but I just wanna cover everybody, so.
Right.
That's fine.
I would be comfortable with no samples. And then just to figure out a way as far as the person has to be carded. I think they have a license for the ABC, right?
Yeah.
In order to, do they have, I don't know the law on that,
Yeah,
as
but
far as who is able to determine whether in fact they are of age or not. So
They're a
if
brewery.
we're able to meet those, I believe, conditions, I would be okay with it.
That would be up to the seller, you know, the cart or the truck where they're bringing, just, you know, just like if they sell it at their shop, and up to them to make sure they check the ID that's valid. I like, you got a point, if you sell it warm, right, you say you can only sell it warm. Chances somebody. That's like, right?
I like the idea of warm, I'm also thinking to myself, you know, it's gonna be 95 degrees out. That's not warm, that's hot, which might be a problem for them also.
I mean,
Sounds like
if you
they have
guys,
experience with it.
we are, like we've said since the beginning, nimble. If you guys are not comfortable with this, we gotta tell them right now. If you don't, if you wanna try it one market and you wanna do it in June, you don't wanna do it in July, it's okay. I mean, everybody is running with this and we can certainly go back to them and just say, this is not something that, we've done it before. We've had food vendors come to us and say, like, we really want a food truck, and we're like, we're not there yet, we're not comfortable with that yet, so it's okay, it's okay conversation to have.
And Ross's, they have a brewing license through the state of New Jersey. They have an establishment in Port Monmouth. So they have people that are used to the carding and the whole ABC procedures. So they have a brewery license. They're familiar with the procedures. Because I spoke with the rep at ABC, who's familiar with that.
I also, and I'm not trying to be the naysayer, I just have questions. I know that you were quite public about the fact that people could not bring dogs to the farmer's market. But there were quite a few people
That's right.
walking around with their dogs. And maybe you guys tried to get them to leave, but I didn't see any attempt to ask people to leave with their dogs. And I'm wondering what's gonna happen with the beer.
I think that from what I've seen through this whole process is the dissemination of information has been an interesting problem because some people the day before the market asked where the market was. Like they didn't even know there was a market going on. So we can't reach, we just can't, like until we're fully saturated, we cannot reach every single, like someone legitimately was like, oh, there's a farmer's market. I was like, it's tomorrow, it's right there. So we're just not gonna be able to get this information out until it's fully in the full swing. So the first one, I don't think that we can be judged on. Like, I don't even want to tell you
No,
guys.
I'm
No, but
not
I'm saying, like,
judging
I agree with you. Like, we did not make it enough job. Yeah,
add additional signage.
But we'll do more signage.
Yeah.
But it was such a learning curve with all of that. We couldn't expect people to not bring their dogs because people didn't even know what was going on. So I think as we go down the line, we'll have a better handle on the do's and the don'ts and the yeses and the nos. And the three of us would be perfectly fine with going up to someone and saying, your dog can go into McCarter Park on the leash. It cannot be on this drag. I think on Saturday, we were just like, what the hell is going on? So if I'm being perfectly honest with you, June, we can level set and say like, no, absolutely no dogs. We see a dog, I'm sorry, you've got to go.
You said level set, I think I just said, I'm now on board.
Is that like, am I speaking your language?
So one, I appreciate that, and two, again, I'm not trying to be difficult. But with what you just said, do you think there's any value in allowing the farmer's market to mature over several more weeks?
100%.
To get 7 months, or 7 months, to get good at figuring out the dissemination issue, figuring out flow, figuring out signs, right? There's some fundamentals of a farmer's market. Why introduce complexity so early? Because I think you can hear some complexity, but we should not say that once we anybody else. So I just offer that as well.
Yeah, I agree. We've had conversations even today where we were like, let's table this conversation, let's get 2 or 3 under our belt, and then we'll kind of stick our necks out there. I don't think that the speculation as to whether someone will buy a beer at this farmer's market and crack it 5 feet down the road is something that we should we should weigh
No, totally.
on including a local business into this. I think that we should default to the stance that people will be responsible and buy a 6-pack of beer to bring home to their house and enjoy it.
Early in the day.
Yeah,
I
people
do
are
think
gone by
that
then.
I would worry a little bit more about
It's 1
that
to 5.
at like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
We aren't probably gonna change it for this year, but it was pretty quiet at like 11.
Yeah.
So just to put that in the thought with alcohol, it really is hopefully a purchase to take off.
But we are flexible, like we keep saying, if this is not something that sits well with you guys, we're not gonna press it, truly. We can.
Which liability? You don't see liability?
I don't, it comes down to enforcement. I will say that the only thing I am completely against is sampling. I actually have the law up right now. It's the requirements and obligations of the people that are operating the farmer's market is significant. Monitoring how many ounces are in a sampling cup, things of that nature. So if you were as a borough to authorize this, that would be the one thing I would be advising against, is allowing sampling.
So this is where I see what you're saying, see what you're saying, definitely see what he's saying. I'd be okay with it without the sampling. But I'm kind of saying like maybe being okay with it for a month to see how it goes. That's where I'm at. And if it went well, then it would just be, I'm not sure if we need like a deep conversation here again. Maybe it's if the council felt comfortable,
We could do it on a trial basis.
something like that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, Andrew already said
But I'd also be okay if you prefer to take like 2 more cycles of the farmer's market before you do, that'd be fine too, whatever.
For me personally, I'd feel more comfortable getting a couple more under the belt. That's me, I'm supportive, but that's how I feel about it. Are there any limitations to whole being selling alcohol next to a school? In the ordinance, you have to be a certain amount of feet away from the entrance of the school or anything?
School or church is 200 feet.
It's church, yeah.
Church or school is 200 feet.
Church or school?
Does school count when it's closed?
That's for a standing liquor license. I'm not really sure about a farmer's market.
Yeah.
That might be a different
They have
category.
slightly different.
Maybe we need to. look
Is
into
that something we need to know?
I don't see anything about that.
I don't think it addresses, I think
Okay.
it's a permanent structure and not.
Okay.
Right.
Right? Any thoughts?
On that.
No?
As long as you don't come here and asking for marijuana. THC stick.
You see some. Those extra cats.
Okay.
Oh, they are licking it.
Good.
I wanna wait.
I'm okay going ahead on a trial basis, and if, to me, it's a retail thing, it's in the morning, the school's not open, we're not talking about. Personally, I think also the vendor has grown its business in farmer's market, so we're not dealing with some gung ho. Newbie, right, doesn't understand what's at stake, so. That's where I am, I'm comfortable with it, even if it's only on a trial basis, so that we can. Obviously, we would need to say that in order to eliminate them if they're not participating responsibly. That's.
Can you limit the approval though? You said the approval's 9 months, so can we approve
We
it?
can tell them. I just have to go back and let her know, council is going to allow this to happen on a borough street or not allowed. And then she can take action from there. If you want to say, for the month of Kelly, who is the person who handles EDC permits at the state level.
I would prefer to put it on a limited to see,
I can tell her, you want to try it for June, and then can we continue from there?
I would even do June and July, give it 2 cycles. And then revisit it and see how it works.
It's fine.
I don't think 1 cycle's enough.
I don't know that I feel comfortable limiting whether they do it cold or hot.
They're gonna know.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's, yeah.
I'm on the New Jersey craft beer website right now, there's 40 different breweries across 20 or 30 different farmers markets in New Jersey, just in the state of New Jersey.
Right.
We leave it up to the beer people to decide what they wanna do with their product.
But I think we still, I think we said no samples based on our legal, advice.
It is allowed under the law, correct?
It is, but there's other
But the,
regulations on that.
the
Chris,
report
is it fine?
finds it.
And then sign it.
I understand.
It's laws.
Fairhaven's second ever Fairhaven's.
But if they also have done all these markets, why would it be any different at ours? Like, why is it gonna be that all of a sudden Fairhaven?
Well, we're unique, very unique place.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that is proven to have worked at several farmers markets, I'm not saying that just because somebody else has done it, it's going to work, it's not, there's evidence that it has.
We could also, we could give the approval for June, July, and then see how it goes and change those limits based on the experience.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to stay that way.
Yeah.
But we got legal advice that he's against samples. I'm not looking to overrule the legal advice we get. I think that signage is necessary. It says no consumption at the farmer's market. And then my third thing, which I'm not sure everyone agrees with, is I'd like the beer to be room temperature and not. But I also don't want them to ruin their beer,
I
you
don't
know?
really understand how they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
The one thing, sorry, go ahead.
No, those were my.
Any other, Brian?
No.
That's
Still
good,
thinking.
spot. Have we thought about, only because I feel like, which is a good problem to have, this is going to get big, right? There's gonna be a lot of demand for it. Have you thought about
at what point do you put some sort of charter together that says we're gonna have X amount of breweries, we're going to have Y amount, only because I feel like if we open up this door, then we could have. If they sold a lot of product, but we could have a problem on our hands where we can't control the number of breweries and the types of businesses that are applying. Or maybe you haven't thought about that, because
Well, we're keeping the operations to the three of us, so we're not including anybody else new to the mix. And all of us have worked pretty tirelessly on this, and we have a similar idea of what we want and.
Like, we basically have that problem with like bakers.
Yeah,
Right
right.
now, like, there's a lot of people that wanna come be bakers, and we're just
having a conversation around it.
local is first, like, how close you actually are to fair even, and quality is a very, very close second, and we're just deciding.
Yeah.
Can I point out, this is actually the one category that the governing body can control, because they have to come for the permit by the entity.
Okay, got it.
So in essence, they control, they control the bakers, we're stuck with whatever sourdough they give us. But if
Not enough.
if we want only one brewery, and we want no brewery.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's a permit for this, okay, got it.
Right.
It's a permit for Ross.
Specific.
Yeah.
Specific.
Okay.
It's a little bit unclear to me if we can give a temporary permit for 2 months, or do we give a season and then can revoke?
Chief said the state should just revoke it, right?
The problem is.
Well, what, those are two different
We can
approaches.
revoke it at any point.
We could, yeah.
We can revoke, but can we say for just 2 months?
Yes, we're gonna, like.
We said it was for the season,
It's permitted for the season, but if you wanna limit to 3 months.
we can do that now.
We just have to let them know before they issue the actual permit from the.
We're good with that set of plans?
So they'll have to come back to us in 2 months.
Oh,
And
is everyone on the council okay if this goes out without a hitch and you don't have concerns? That we just put it again on the consent agenda, they don't have to come. Yeah, have to come. Unless they have like health.
Not only that.
No, but this isn't clear because there's two different things that we're saying here. One, we're saying we're doing this on a 2-month basis. So if they're gonna send the approval for 2 months, then it will have to come back to us to approve.
What I'm saying is, I was just on the consent agenda, instead of making them come back,
I gotcha. So we just say yes.
although we love to
I'll
have.
earmark like.
Can I have a request, I'd like to get a firm answer on the school. Sorry, it
It's not-
wasn't convincing to me. Is it?
It's not a set establishment, like the seller's, but it's
Yeah,
something.
it's a pop-up, not operating during school hours. And that's the difference, is that this could be taken out at any time, as opposed to a place that is establishing a leasehold over, at the Acme, that's a different decision.
So I could put a pop-up beer with ABC near a school.
If children are, if it's a temporary and children are not present.
Children,
There's no school functions. Remember, alcohol is legal, so as opposed to when narcotics, when you sell narcotics within 500 feet of a school, that's a different law,
Yeah.
right?
Generally speaking, if schools are problematic, they put an application, are you located within 200 feet of a school? You'd have to check yes or no, and that will eliminate you. Since they don't have that in the application, to Allison's point and to Andrew's point, I think it won't be an issue.
Promise.
we need a vote?
I think.
Allison, do you need a vote?
I do. So I have, it's gonna be a motion to approve for June and July, no samples and preferred room temperatures.
Wow.
Are you?
I'm not voting
I
for
think
that.
it should just be not preferred, just room temperature.
I think we let them do their thing. They know how to run their vendor. This is their business. They know what they're doing. I don't really want to get into their product.
Because
Yeah, I
one
don't-
year it was
I
cold
hear
in the
you.
fall.
And then it came very, like.
Yeah,
spoiled.
that's
That's what I said, yeah.
Once you chili,
Yeah,
Yeah, it would just be bad business for them if they sold really
I
bad.
mean, we can ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you
Oh.
put that in their marketing plan?
We would like,
Just keep the beer.
I would like to have the temperature be the sweet spot between, what's enjoyable, temperature like cold, and doesn't ruin the beer.
Okay.
Try to split if there's a way to communicate. I agree. If
That
it's
feels
cold
like
beer-
a thumb on.
We can work.
I mean, they understand through these permits
What?
that they've done before that
Right.
Yeah,
Nobody should be walking up and down. That's the ABC's concern too, that.
Drinking alcohol on an open street is against the law.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
but, I mean, that's
That
just
doesn't mean
something.
people don't do.
That doesn't mean-
Right, yeah. We'll tell everybody a famous few dates.
People have water.
Yeah.
bottles.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion? Anyone that wants to make a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the request for Ross Brewery for a 2-month period with the, assuming, I don't want to get too detailed, Allison, but heading this probationary period, if it goes well, the consent agenda can address this for ongoingly. And with no samples, please.
And sign.
No samples and adequate signage to.
And temperature.
And to request,
My motion does not include the temperature.
I agree with that one, so I'm not sure how we wanna,
You gotta second it.
I second that one.
is this an all in favor, Allison, or a roll call?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Said I.
Oh, said I. So
So it's
it
four.
passed. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, we have another thing. No, we don't have to come back.
Time's up.
But we do need, we would like to formally request, 2 garbage cans on either end of the street for people that are leaving the, market. So the one in the middle was utilized. There was no trash left on the street after the market. We did do pictures, we cleaned up. It was pretty seamless. But there is a request to have one on each end.
If
So-
we notice a lot of people walking, holding garbage, that is not ideal.
I thought each vendor was gonna put their own.
Yeah, they did, and when everyone left, they were
Left it as they found it.
happy. I think it's more of like almost a customer service perspective of, we would like people to not be searching so hard for garbage. And we can first and foremost approach it from the stance of, it seems like something the town could provide and could live in those parks. It's also.
How many trash cans do we have in the park?
I'm gonna talk as obviously I'm a citizen here. But
Resident.
this is, as a resident of Fairhaven, there's obviously becoming a lot of issues regarding the garbage in Fairhaven Fields. It's, I can't even tell you the amount of times I have to answer questions regarding garbage cans, or the lack thereof. Garbage cans in Fairhaven Fields. I'm in Fairhaven Field probably about 8 to 10 hours a week with baseball. We have to look at what we're doing for garbage cans throughout Fairhaven. Because if we just approve it for the farmer's market, and this is viewed by anyone on Zoom or in the public, and they get wind of this, there's gonna be an uproar. It's becoming almost, it's a hot topic in town. Just like, you know, the farmer's market was extremely successful, buzz around the county. I knew numerous vendors from outside that said it was fantastic, loved every second of it. I've been going to farmers markets for years and, you know, being a vendor. We have to look at the garbage cans. If we're gonna approve garbage cans at the farmers market, then it should be looked at Fairhaven Fields as well.
Well,
That's a bigger conversation.
thank you for the comment as a resident. What I was gonna say is just, I wasn't prepared to discuss this, and I think I need to discuss it as part of the
Yeah.
larger trash conversation before we can get back to you and let you know
Well, and I mean,
what we can and
if
cannot
the
do.
other route is that we purchase garbage cans from a store and put them there, and then we figure out a dumpster to put it in. So we are just coming to you, first line of defense would be, this is benefiting this town, this is people from this town, with their trash. That makes a lot of sense to me. I also spend a lot of time in that park, and it's almost like a forced litter situation because it's falling out.
Yeah.
So I agree, it's a bigger issue, but for June 15th, we want to make it better. So should we just purchase garbage cans and put it in our garbage on our street?
Well, I'm not
There's
gonna,
an option.
I'm not gonna tell you not to do that, but what I can say is I think I don't know if that's a DPW conversation with our DPW committee.
DPW conversation, the impact
I don't think we
of trash.
necessarily have to put it on like a future meeting. but maybe we do, but, I think maybe we could knock it out. Just, before the next call, we'll get back to you and let you know where we're at.
And if it needs to be listed, June 11th, that's right before your event.
Yeah.
Don't mind them. Yeah, that's, so let us know, we'll be, flexible on that.
Okay.
Are there any, just a quick question on that, since June 11th is before the next one?
Yeah.
If I can make a request to the three of you to brainstorm if there's any additional requests that you would like to make overall. That has, and don't need the answer now, right? But the original approval, right, if we go back, right, was, no street, no taco trucks, right, no food trucks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're not.
There was no garbage, right, originally, so if you're able to self-reflect and there are additional requests that you would like to make that would deviate from what was originally expected as lessons learned, I would just request that we have that entire picture, so we don't see like we're trying to like piecemeal or do one of
Well,
them.
we are trying to piecemeal it because we are still learning. So every market, like, we're going to have to do some ADA compliance stuff this time. We have people
Sure.
below wheelchairs that we have to accommodate respectfully. That makes perfect sense. So that was a learn.
Love
lesson.
it. So I'd say before everyone, then if there's extra requests that you
Yeah,
need for
well,
support.
this is something that we can work with the chief on. It should be no problem. The team was incredibly accommodating for the group. That's a lesson learned. So we are, I'll be transparent with you. We're going to walk away from every market and say, this is a lesson learned. We have to get wagons so that we can help people get their things back to their car. It's a good problem to have.
Love
So
it.
these are
Lovely
things that we're
idea.
just going to have to come to you guys and say, like we've done the whole time. We will handle it as long as we get your support, but I don't want to say like, I'm gonna have this whole thing mapped out for the next 10 years.
No. All I'm saying is right, just like tonight where the garbage cans came up, right, without having any pre-awareness or knowledge of that. Since June 11th is before the next one, if there's anything in
Yeah.
addition that you want to have top cover on, just bring it all together. That's all I'm saying.
And I just want to say thank you again.
Yeah.
I couldn't go, I had a little bit of FOMO, but I was seeing it all online and it looked amazing. So I'm so proud of what you did. And I can't wait till the next one.
They're gonna be well prepared for the group, so.
And multiple people mentioned the bread apparently.
A lot of
Yeah.
it.
Now, the bread sold out at like 10:15.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
She didn't know what.
That's my favorite statistic is, 29 hands, the girl who grew up on Hands Street, Corey. Brought
Not
500 pastries and sold out by 10:30.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mom told me she didn't think she had enough. when she
Yeah,
came in.
like, or she thought she was gonna.
Good problems.
Yes,
That's
it was
amazing.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
thanks.
Next up, Monmouth County Open Space Park Improvement Grant, Councilman Paul.
Sure. Councilwoman Biaselli and I will tag team on this, and obviously, feel free to jump in with questions and thoughts as we go. You all received, as usual, your summary template. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but I'll just give you big picture. This is Monmouth County Open Space Park Improvement Grant. You may recognize this, it's just the Park of Monmouth County Open Space Grant. There was some changes made to the program this year. Those changes were announced in April. They increased the funding from $2 million annually to $6 million annually. They increased the municipal threshold or ceiling on your application from 250,000 to 500,000. They have streamlined the application process, and this is a very aggressive and enthusiastic program that the county is committed to helping get good dollars and good projects done in Monmouth County. So what you have in front of you, this one, as compared to some of the other grant templates we prepared for you, this one was a little bit more unique one because there hasn't been a need to talk about bonding, there hasn't been a need to talk about this size or this important amount of money. So we took an extra step and met with the program director, and not knowing what council would want to do really. And it's not the grants committee's role to recommend a specific project or even chase a grant in the name of the governing body. That's really jurisdiction of this body. But we identified three different types of projects and explored the eligibility of those types of projects with the program director. The three that we explored with her have to do with, continuing to improve public access to the river. And what this means is, for example, improvements to Normandy or 21 or Hants, or really collectively overall, we should acknowledge that the county has their own goal for opening up public access to the river. They consider that an amenity, improve livability for all residents in the county. And it's of course one of our goals too in our master plan. And they've been functioning as a partner with us on this really since, number of years ago. In 2009 was the first time they assisted with the acquisition of the Normandy. So since that time, they've been helping to fund public access to the river in Fairhaven. So we spoke with Amanda, the program director, about that, and that's considered very eligible. And also, she looked very highly on the idea that we would be looking at it comprehensively, knowing that it had multiple components and could be implemented over a number of years in phases, as we explore the possibility of those investments, right? Our readiness financially, our preparedness in terms of concept plan developments. So that was one that was very eligible. We also explored with her the community center fields as an initiative. That also was very much like other grants for this particular fund, and that would also be eligible. With this, it doesn't have the same readiness as some of the other ones because we don't really have a plan or a concept plan. There's no planning, concept plan, or design. The design can come after, but there's some initial planning and a concept plan that we don't have. I should go back, except to say that in public access to the river, we do have a partial development on a concept plan for Normandy. Nowhere else do we have that.
Those soft costs, though, we would have to fund, right?
This does not cover soft costs.
So all that planning would be soft costs.
All of it.
And all those professional services.
Yeah, I should back up and say, you can apply for up to $500,000. That commits the municipality to $1 million project with a rebate of $500,000 and no soft costs covered. This is money to build, execute, and complete a project. The obligation is to complete that project in 30 months. Obviously, there are times that doesn't happen. We fall into that category too. And they were very complimentary of Fairhaven, and particularly our administrator who's done a fantastic job communicating with their office over the years. And I'll say quickly before I jump to that, that the third thing that we ran by them had to do with removal of invasives, completing trail linkages and bottle filling stations throughout, not throughout, but in key places in Fairhaven. And that was also eligible. So three very different types of projects, all eligible.
And how did those three projects get identified?
We did our best to kind of think of distinct kind of what could we provide council that we give you guys the ability to rule in and rule out, other things that might look like community center, or might look like public access to water, or might look like the invasive. We did our best not knowing, honestly. We also know that obviously, it helps if it ties back to the master plan. It helps if it's something that's been discussed broadly. It helps if it resonates with the community. So, but again, I would say we kind of drifted out of our lane a little bit in order to provide some basic information to the governing body, but only in terms of categories.
Rumson were both awarded this grant. I don't believe it coincided with their master plan, but I know they both received.
I think one was Victory Park. Didn't they get funding for Victory?
No, they just got Meadow Ridge, which is the road, and also where the signals.
I mean, it is awarded often, and one of the questions I did ask is that since we haven't closed out or even started one of our projects through that was being funded by this, will that put us at a like on a negative in terms of getting awarded again? And she said no. So it doesn't hurt that we haven't even started some of the projects that we have funding for currently.
And I just want to give the governing body an overview, since 2003, and this is a really an acknowledgement of our staff. Since 2003, the Borough of Fairhaven has applied for 13 grants. Of those 13, 7 were awarded for a total of $1,248,000. The balance of those remaining 6 grants were not funded. 2 of them are still, I'll suggest, relevant in that one has to do with, in 2016, bank stabilization and park improvements at William Allen Robart Park. I have looked at it. There's some relevance. If it was something that the council wanted to explore, there's something there to build on. If we wanted to consider an application. And same thing in 2020, we put in an application for Fairhaven Fields Trail linkage and expansion. It was also not awarded. But there's something there, again, application wise, there's something there that's, if we wanted to build on it and put in a submission. You know, no matter what, it's a question of whether or not we can afford to do something. And in some cases, you have to ask yourself, can we afford not to? You know, are there something so urgent that we can't afford not to try to get the money for it? And I'll leave it there for discussion.
So I have a couple of questions. Do you have the support of the borough administrator and the engineer?
Do I have the support?
Yes.
No, I can, this is coming to council.
Yeah, but you have their support,
I didn't seek their support.
so you don't have their support.
Right, the grants committee comes to the governing body.
Okay, I'm just asking. And then, so how,
If the governing body tells the staff what,
We
it's
do.
not beside the grants committee.
That is that is what's technically happens. Like if we decide as a governing body that we want to push this grant forward,
yeah, I understand. All
we
that,
do want their support, obviously, but
but it doesn't sound like it.
well, we don't have a liaison from the administration, which I know Tracy had asked in the past that we thought it would be good to have someone from the administration.
Actually, I'd hope to have staff person on the committee, but I understand how thin the staff is stretched.
Yeah, understanding that, but
It's, you know, the staff doesn't have a whole lot of time to prepare grant applications. That is to determine whether or not we want to select a project and submit an application is up to this body.
And the second question is how will we pay for it?
We're not the finance committee. That's a function separate from the grants committee. I mean, listen, I've done a fair amount of conversation with people about the things that, there's a planning piece of this that isn't part of the grants committee, and there's a finance piece of this, it's not part of the grants committee. We don't have a staff person to, you know, probe those resources. I think it would be helpful. I mean, I could ask you, how would you pay for it? I mean, it would be a bond, obviously.
I want to know what the projects are first.
Well, that's why we're here. That's the jurisdiction of the council.
So I have a couple of questions, and we actually talked about some of that today. First is, the Roman numeral 8, borough staff and organization request. Designated staff member will be required to serve as a municipal contact person. That seems to me that based on the overview of this grant, that would be a substantial amount of work. And as you just said, we're stretched thin.
Our staff is stretched thin.
So I would hate to encumber a staff member that's already working at full capacity with a request such as this to oversee the project, because it really seems to me to be a very extensive project. And secondly, we would have to bond for $1 million.
Yeah. If
So,
we applied for 500.
so for the sake of easy math, let's just use 1,500,000, regardless of what it is. So the understanding would be that the grant would pay us back $500,000. So my question is, that $500,000, would that be automatically applied to the $1 million that we borrowed and are paying back right away? Or is it the $1 million that we bonded plus another $500,000 that this grant would provide the borough of Fairhaven? My question in addition to that is, if that $500,000 could be used to pay back the bond that we took out, which was $1 million, are there prepayment penalty fees associated with that? Because sometimes when you take out a loan and you go to pay back that loan earlier than originally agreed upon, there are fees associated with that.
So there are ways to do that, structure a bond, but it usually entails higher interest rates. So you sort of pay it one way or the other. You pay for the optionality.
Just to clarify, when you do a bond authorization that involves a grant, whether it's an open space grant or a DOT grant, you put the full amount, the $1 million in bond authorization. And the bond council will automatically put in the offset by a $500,000 grant. We wouldn't borrow the $1 million. Our cash flow is such that, this is a reimbursable grant. You fund the project, you pay the project, you get your grant money back, but you might not issue that debt for 2 years, when we actually, we bundle debt together and issue it all at once. We don't issue it per bond authorization. So there's no prepayment penalties worried or anything like that. That's not how it would set up. When you look at it, with any bond ordinance, that's the way it would be written.
And the last part is, I am really concerned about applying for another grant, especially a grant with this scope, with everything else we have going on. We have a lot of projects in open queue. And the statement of need states that we have park facilities in need of investment. And I believe that through our micro park projects, we have been addressing some of those problems and bonded for it already. The end of Grange. The end of Baton Road, the launch site. So I'm reluctant to put ourselves in greater debt before we actually take care of what we've already committed ourselves to.
So the only thing I'm gonna add, which I think we've spoken about, is the one project that I feel like perhaps this would connect with. Is the Robards Living Shoreline. My concern with that is I think that by doing that, and potentially if the decision is made to do the same at 21 Fairhaven Road, I have to think from a planning, designing, we would have some synergies in the cost in doing both of them at the same time. And since we're not there yet, I think to put forth a grant just for the one project and not both of them at the same time would be short-sighted. So like, in my opinion, I don't know where we'll be next year at the same time, but that would be my target on the top of my head, is maybe if we have the time to prepare, maybe we could knock out that whole part of the shoreline at the same time. Or maybe there's another project at that point that this body has decided we have to do this and this will qualify for. And at that point, I think we'll be in a better position. That's my opinion, but someone else wants to make a motion or something like that.
Well, this funding is, it's going to come up every year.
Sure.
So even if, the grants committee's charge is to metabolize the grants as they come in, summarize them for you, present them. That's what this is. This is, hey, this is this grant that's out there. It'll be around next year.
And we should mention, I spoke with Councilwoman Cole today, not the next meeting, the meeting after. The grants committee is going to give sort of a summary of the entire committee and the timelines of future grants that might be out there.
Look through our best, yeah.
And then maybe that'll be a good path forward to understanding what's coming down the pipe as well. Give a little clarity in the whole
Can we
body.
do a summary of what we have as well?
Yeah, that'll be part of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
That we haven't.
it's a
We're in
summary
the
of
awarded,
like, Gotcha. Oh, grants that we.
That would be helpful, yeah. Can I ask a question of Teresa? So, like, this is a grant that we have applied for in the past. Just. And this will come up, I think, when we have our larger conversation, but I think there's more of a conversation to be had with what the administration's looking at and what we're looking at. I think there needs to be a lot more communication there, kind of to your point. But. Had you guys looked at this grant and then decided we just didn't have any projects that fit it? Or just how did you decide in the past that we wanted to move forward with this grant and not this time around?
Generally speaking, we discussed it at, the committee level and then came to the full governing body.
Committee level. Which
Uh,
committee?
Engineering public works generally, because it's, usually
Yeah.
engineering, that helps assist. We've submitted every Monmouth County grant, in the last, since I've been here, and we've done it internally,
Yeah,
I took the lead and used our staff members and everyone contributed their part and we put them together. They're quite extensive. I mean, I sent you some, 112 pages. There's a lot that goes into a Monmouth County grant application. And I believe we're very capable. I don't know what my successors, grant writing ability to be, but I'm confident that, we've been very capable in the past to do them internally. But the time frame here, with everything else we've got going on in the borough, doing an in-house grant submission for 2024 cycle would not be practical or possible. I'm retiring. Rich has many other projects that he's trying to get out the door right now, for the design and all that. And I also think that this governing body, as part of when they look at capital funding and their plans for down the road, have to look at all of that. And if you take your time and you get input on what you feel is a priority for a good application, I wouldn't waste $125,000 or a small project now. Now that they can give you $500,000, put an application, because you don't gonna get one every grant cycle. So put one in that's really gonna give you a bang for your buck for the next season. Start talking about it in September. Start getting input of what the public feels, what you guys feel. Maybe it is the community center fields at that point. Maybe it is the waterfronts, whatever the case may be. Then you'll have time, and if you tell your staff in January, there's no secret of when the Monmouth County Open Space Grant, this is the governing body's priority for our 2025 Monmouth County Open Space Grant, and we want to do this particular project. You'll have plenty of time to write it in-house, and hopefully by that time, your facilities will start to be getting wrapped up. Rich will have several projects out to bid. My successors will have their feet wet, and I think shooting for a very good, strong application in 2025 is a much better option than trying to rush one in for 2024. I just don't think you'd have the ability to do it in-house and get it done. And I also think your finance committee, it's a strong committee, and they're looking at a lot of things, and you can sit down with your financial planners, the new CFO, and really start to take a look at what your, 3-year capital plan is and how that grant fits into that. And your road projects and everything else that you want to accomplish over that time frame.
I would like to suggest that we do talk about that in advance of the budget for, next year as we start contemplating what we want to prioritize. These decisions kind of shouldn't be made in a vacuum, right? If we're really doing a good job, they shouldn't be made in a vacuum. Absent the financial component, absent the sort of big picture planning piece. And, that's what I think too. I don't want to leave money on the table. The application is significantly leaner. It doesn't diminish your point about availability of staff, but it is a much more streamlined application. It's nowhere near the number of pages that it was before. So that's one of the other significant changes in the program.
and can I just add to that? I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I definitely take it to heart. It's good for us to discuss them beforehand, because they're always gonna be a quick turnaround, because this didn't come out until April. Like, they didn't come out with all the specifications until like the beginning of April, and then we met, and then we met with the county, so it's always gonna be a little bit of a smaller, not a huge window to turn these around. So if we, go into the grant season, having a better understanding of what our 3-year plan is, or what our, instead of saying our priorities necessarily, our needs are, then we, as a grant committee, would be able to make stronger recommendations. But we were kind of going blind, not knowing what our priorities are, knowing we have a lot of projects, but we really haven't talked about what is next or what we're thinking about next. So I think that's a really big piece of this that needs to be discussed.
Well, that should be first.
Ideally.
True, but we didn't, you know, so.
I think as the summary is put together of the grants, right, for whatever June meeting, right? Understanding what those gaps are, right, because the committee is made up of the governing body members, private citizens, whose mission be to review and advise the governing body on available state and federal grant opportunities, right? So knowing that that's the mission, if you can identify all the questions that need to be answered so that we're not, we're very effective and efficient with our time, right? You'll know what grants to look after and whatnot if we say the 3-year plan includes X, Y, and Z.
What do you mean questions to be answered? Questions for the specific grant or questions of what's the most important projects
Well,
to take on?
what grants should we be looking at, right? That's the question we have. How do we know what grants we should be looking at, right? And that should be tied to what are our priorities, right, as a governing body, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna apply for every and any grant that exists, right? It has to come back to some foundational component. And I get the master plan, but the reexamination is up next year, right? So, it's 9 years old now, right? So there are certain questions that need to be answered in order to drive the direction of the grant committee.
Definitely, which
And that's what I'm saying.
wasn't given.
Right.
It doesn't make
It's
sense.
almost like a project plan, for lack of a better term, but it's like, here's this period in which we're gonna decide our priorities. We're going to seek grants accordingly, we're going to seek resident feedback, we're going to make, like, it's almost like I'm picturing like a project plan, that's kind of what we need to do. And we're all saying. the same
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
And along, in tandem with that, if we have the long view and we can see what we want to accomplish, even if it considers a longer horizon line, then the finance committee and the CFO can guide and advise as to, when debt is rolling off and when we can consider some of these other projects for bond and, to me, because to do one without the other, we're just gonna be in the same position where.
And a lot of work, just because I want to say, like Chelsea and Bender and the rest of the team, they put a lot of work into this, and there were a lot of grants that we didn't put forward. We
Yeah.
were thoughtful about what project we thought could be, but again, there wasn't enough information on what are our priorities or our needs, so. I'm glad we're kind of on the same page, and I think it's a bigger conversation we can continue when we have our meeting in two times.
Is a public hearing required for these open space grants?
Yeah,
Because they're gonna need minutes and all that.
there's an enhanced public participation component, but it does fit between the April, July 17th. Although I do wonder, every municipality is in the same position Farrington's in. The program guidelines, if for the towns that anticipated those small changes, some would say they were pretty significant, but it has to fit between April and July. So it
Right,
does.
so
I think
it has to be a public notice that you're
Correct.
having this hearing with the specifics of the grant they're looking for, so then the public can provide you with their input, and then I can check the minutes so that it can go with your grant package.
Are we tonight, are we discussing whether or not to apply for the grant, or are we discussing? Or are we assuming we are, and we just take an address?
Well, I think the ask, from the committee. Maybe it's not a specific ask, it was a discussion of whether the governing body at this time wanted to move forward with applying for something with this grant. I got the sense in this chair that there wasn't that support, but if there is, please let me know before we move on. Is that accurate?
I would say that's accurate.
Is that an accurate sense? Accurate, okay, so I think it was a good conversation, we'll come back in 2 meetings, continue that conversation, maybe on a larger scale, not having to do with this specific grant, but just the grants, grant committee and, totality. All right, all good?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Moving along, public comment on agenda items. This is for agenda items only. Please observe a 3-minute time limit. Please stand, identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Is there anyone in the public with agenda item only? Yes. Hi, Carolyn.
Ferguson, 720 Court, I'm the chair of the Natural Area Committee. I just want to remind everyone that for the last few years, we've been asking for curbs on Fairhaven Road. So as you guys work on the Fairhaven Road curbing plan, if you could consult with us, we'd appreciate that.
I'll follow up with you.
Okay, our specific need is at the end of Buttonwood, we'd like to be some curb just to, we're getting a lot of erosion, the water comes right off.
I think Rich, you're aware of it, right? Yes. It's all.
Is it documented by the county plan that you got parks guidance on? Or is it just? I know that you had a report prepared by the county park service.
Yeah, no, this was just something we've observed for many years, that there's erosion and we've tried a variety of techniques
Okay.
to interrupt it and.
We're definitely aware of that area. Yep, thank you, Carolyn. Is there anyone else, public comment, agenda items only? No, Allison?
No one has their hand raised.
All right, thank you. Moving along, we have, the hearing and adoption of ordinance number 2024-06 to amend chapter 3, police regulations to add section 21 entitled resident protection. Do I have a motion to open? the
So
hearing?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone have any comments on this before I ask the public? No? Anyone in the public have any comments in relation to 2024-06?
Can she just articulate what value it adds? One more time, just so everybody has it.
Yeah, we talked about it last time, it has value of, there may be something that doesn't quite reach a state. Right, it's state statute, but maybe we cover it in the core ordinance, or you could maybe take it down. So it's great to have. Hopefully we won't have to use it, but it's here.
It's to prohibit loitering, in front of residences of people that are trying to case a joint.
Yeah, that's like trying to.
Yeah.
State statute won't cover
That's the
that.
lingo that's used?
So it's almost like gap coverage. In a way.
It's gotta cover some of the stuff that's not quite.
Got it. Super helpful. Thank you.
So the mayor brought this to me a few months ago, it was a great ordinance, and that's what.
Thank you.
Anyone in the public? Comment? No, Allison?
Nobody's got their hand raised.
Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Members Paul?
Yes.
Simonelli?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes. Thank you. New business, introduction of ordinances 2024-07. Amend chapter 30, land use and development regulations to comply with the NJDEP stormwater management rules.
Motion to introduce?
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul?
Yes.
Simonelli?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. 2024-08.
Discussion? Or?
No, that's his introduction.
All right.
2024-08, general capital ordinance.
Motion.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul?
Yes.
Simonelli?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
2024-09, amend salary ordinance number 2023-13.
Motion.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul?
Yes.
Simonelli?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. Consent agenda, we're talking resolutions 2024-133 through 2024-150. Before I ask for a motion, does anyone want to separate anything?
I don't know where that stands when we spoke earlier, but 2024-138. There remains an open question unless that got resolved today. I don't know about it.
Teresa, did you hear back from
I did not, I mean, I reviewed them both, and so was Justin Rivera. You know, the scope of work, to us is the same. But I did send a follow-up email, to Laura Berwin today confirming that. If the governing body wants to, move forward, you can. If you want to wait, 2 weeks, you can. That's up to you.
All right, so I'm gonna withdraw 2024-138. Allison, if you can place that on next, on the next meeting unless we tell you otherwise, please. We're talking 2024-133 through 137, and then 139 through 150. Is there any other resolution anyone wants to separate? Is there any other resolution anyone wants to make a comment on? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve?
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
Pinisari,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Thank you. Department reports, April 2024. Do I have a motion to accept the reports as submitted with a thank you?
Motion with a thank you.
Second.
Alex, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Go to the borough. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Please try to observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the public comment? Hello? Yep, right over here.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I'm Marty Young. I live in Winthrop actually, and, but I'm here representing Clean Water Action. I don't know if you all have heard about Skip the Stuff. It's been in the news. It's been on the radio, but it's a campaign in which that's going town by town. There's a state ordinance or there's a state bill, but it's restaurants, only give cutlery and condiments upon request. It's a triple win. It saves restaurants a lot of money. My other hat I wear is I work with our Rethink Disposable program, and I work with emergency food providers. I've got case studies that show how getting rid of unnecessary single use and replacing it with reusables is just a huge savings. But I don't know about you, but I eat out a lot, and I can't tell you how many times some people give me nothing, but other times I get a handful of plastic cutlery and maybe get home. I either shove it in a dump drawer or open up my refrigerator and put the soy sauce or whatever in that until I realize it's expired or it's been shoved in the back of my refrigerator and I throw it away. So again, this skip the stuff is what we're calling it. It's a triple win. But thirdly, it really helps the environment. 40 billion single-use disposable plastic silverware is discarded every year in the US alone. And most of it's never been touched. It's never been used. So again, it's such an unnecessary burden on restaurants, on you and me as customers, as on the environment. So we are going town by town to ask for you all to support this ordinance. I actually just came from Monmouth Beach and they passed the first reading. Hoboken passed the first reading a week or two ago. Jersey City is committed. Red Bank, a handful of towns rolled it into in 2019, 2020, including Stone Harbor, Maplewood. Maplewood has a great ordinance. But Red Bank and Garwood passed unanimously. Red Bank has a great ordinance. They both passed in March. Model ordinances to follow. Garwood, again, Aberdeen is working on it. There's about a dozen different towns across the state, Cranford, that are passing ordinances. And Senator Bob Smith has a bill introduced into legislation. We're tweaking on the language. It will probably be introduced. We'll see. But it was supposed to be, we were supposed to discuss it this last time, 2 weeks ago? But we will be discussing it in 2 weeks. Again, Senator Smith is a big supporter of this. So, would love you all to pass it in Fairhaven. I'm open to ideas or questions. Red Bank has phenomenal flyers that we help produce both in English and in Spanish to help educate the businesses and the town people. You know, I was hearing about, I have to say, I did not know about your farmer's market. I will try hard to go there, but you were talking about litter. One of the, the advantages when I was talking to Mayor of Trenton a couple of weeks ago, his first reaction was, oh my gosh, it's gonna get rid of the litter on the streets. So let alone the waterways and such, the plastic that's building up in, in our bodies, it's crazy to think that the microplastics can break down into such small micro nanoparticles that the vegetables that are being grown, you know, are actually sucking it up, so we're actually getting it in our carrots and our apples. It's. Sorry, I have to take a moment when I even say that, because it's mind-boggling to me. But do you guys have any questions?
So thank you very much for your comments. If you want to send me an email with the proposed legislation, I'll certainly share it with the other council members.
Fabulous. I will send you Hobokens, I'll send you Red Banks, they're fabulous. I'll send you Red Banks flyers. And please use me as much or as little as you would like, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public with a public comment? No, Allison?
I have Ruth Blazer.
Hi, Ruth.
Good evening.
Oh,
Oh, wait.
Ruth, we can't.
Hold
hear you
on
yet.
one sec, Ruth.
Hello.
I heard something.
I heard her, but she was distant.
Yeah.
I am. I'm
I
far
hear her
down.
laughing.
I'm far down the street.
Up arrow on the speaker and change the output to the left-hand side, where the audio is. If you go up arrow, yep. And then the speaker, you should be able to select the owl. And then Ruth, you should come through the owl now.
Okay. Tell me the story of the little gray boxes along River Road. On the curb.
Are you looking for like a bedtime story or a children's story? What do you mean? by that?
What
What is it?
are they? What are they? How long are they going to be there? Who's in charge of them?
I think they're gonna be there just until,
Temporary.
Yeah.
The light bulbs.
the new light poles are on their way, they're on order. You know, we don't know the exact day, but what would your guess be, Richard? Weeks, not months, right? Weeks, not months.
And just completed all the other work in the contract.
And just to come back, right, last year, we put those gray boxes because there were live wires exposed to the public. So they were put there to prevent people from touching live electric wires. Yeah, exactly.
I noticed the other day somebody did a job on the post right out in front of Borough Hall.
that's a JCP&L call, they're gonna address that.
So anyhow, hello.
No, we're still here.
Oh,
We're
good. The reason I ask is because there's a light that you put up, one of the new light poles across the street. It was off Saturday and Sunday. It was on Monday. It's sort of an intermittent type thing. So I assume that once all these light poles are up, that all of them are going to work all of the time.
Yes, I believe they've started the work to address all the lighting in our downtown on River Road. That's correct.
Is there any way I can get a schematic or whatever of, the swath, when they put in the curbs and sidewalks, they put the green swath between the curb and the sidewalk. I'd like to know what they put in under the green stuff that they call grass, because I tried to hammer a piece of rebar into it the other day to put a sign up and it would not go into the ground. And I'm wondering if it's concrete under there.
Rich is saying no, but
Put rebar because the conduit for the electrical light.
Bruce, don't want you going up.
No. When they were putting the piping and wiring in, they put that under my garden. I was keeping an eye on that. They didn't put it in the swath as far as I could tell.
Always call 811 before you do your punch of the hole.
Yeah.
Mark out.
I'm definitely check on that.
Ruth, anything else?
I would like to, for summer reading, everybody's interested in summer reading. I'd like the residents of Fairhaven to read the borough codes, particularly code number 14 and section number 16. It's very, very interesting because you seem to be legislating for aesthetics and legislating for hypothetical possibilities and not for things that are actually a menace to the public health and safety. And I think a lot of the ordinances, we could have a lot narrower book if we could eliminate all the stuff that really isn't giving the property owner their rights to peaceful enjoyment of their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Yeah, there's no one else with their hand up. Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I just wanna thank Marta for, I'm well aware of Skip the Stuff, and I do think it's a very good program, so I just wanted to say that I'm pretty caught up on this way.
See your name a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, 8:45 PM, we're gonna move towards executive session. Action may be taken after the executive session meeting. Do I have a motion to move to executive session? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Allison, we on? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn at 11:04 PM?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Anyone opposed? Good night, Fairhaven.
check. Double click.